Hey you, and welcome. In this video, we will learn about version control, specifically GitHub. So let's dive right into it. I'm looking at the package that we have worked with before on NPM called Nope, and I'm going to look at the GitHub repository for this module. In order to do that, if I scroll down on the right-hand side, there is a repository and homepage. They both are landing on the same page, which is the github.com link. So I'll just click on repository here, and that will take me to GitHub page. And repository in GitHub is just that. It's a project, or it's just a code base. It's a folder of code that you created on your computer that turns into a repository by the time it gets hosted by GitHub. And GitHub is a service. It's a free service for the most part. There are prices attached on a higher level or an enterprise level. There will be pricing attached. But for personal projects or even private projects that you may be working on, it is free for the most part. So repository in this case on github.com is the username / the repository name, which is Leslie Nope complement generator. It's always the case that the username will be first / the repo name, and the repo name will be a string without spaces, so you can put dashes, underscores, but no spaces in the middle of the words. On the right hand side, I have the about this repository section and some information about which language it was written in. GitHub gets that information directly from the code because all the code gets pushed to GitHub. And on the left hand side, that's where the code is. There's where the whole folder structure for the code, like tests and assets, this is coming from the developer that wrote this code, along with Nope.js file that we were looking at before. If I click into it, I can see the code, and they highlight it for us as well, because some of the languages that it may GitHub may be familiar with, JavaScript is one of them, and they will highlight that accordingly, so it doesn't just look like a plain text. It actually looks very readable to go through the code on GitHub as well. I can see the raw text itself by clicking on raw, and that's how it looks, but it's not really user friendly. So I'll go back, and I'll go back one more, and there we are. We're back on the main repository page. If I scroll further down, there is the readme.md. That's the file that we had created previously of one of our projects as well. And when you create readme.md file, GitHub just picks that up and shows it right under your repo. So that can be your welcome page for your repo. And that's where usually you would put instructions on how to start your project or how to work with the project. What is the project about? If you want to contribute, how can you contribute? So on and so forth. So let's talk about the version control portion of GitHub. So I'll click on commits on the screen. And in commits, I can see there has been many commits on this repo. Commit in a repo means saving a state or saving a save state for you to come back to, or a checkpoint you can call it, where you would save that code to say, this has some meaning. I'm going to provide a message along with it, and that message will tell me what this commit is about. So that's what this person has done as well, this developer has done as well, is where every time they have committed, they had provided some information about what they did, like CI badge in this case, they added that, adding Circle CI integration. So there has been a few things that have happened, and they provided message to remember that that's what the save state means. So if I scroll all the way to the bottom, I can see the first commit this person ever made. And if I look at the right, there's a hash. I can click on that button to see the diff, D-I-F-F, which is just short form for difference between the files before this commit happened and after this commit happened. So that's the difference there is going to show. And the view looks something like this. On the left-hand side is all the files that were included in this diff, which are basically the first commit ever. So this is how the project started. And then on the right-hand side is the preview of the content of each file. In this case, .git attributes was the first file, .git ignore, and readme. There's tons of other files. Let me hop over to Nope.js, and that's what Nope.js looks like in the beginning, which is a very basic function. It looks much different now because it has gone through some changes, but initially that's how the Nope.js looked, and that's nice to see because you can see the history of the project. Let me show you more. If I go back to the commits page, and let's take a look at one that has some changes where we took away some code or changed some code that already existed. Let's work with adding tests, updating keywords. Let's click on that. There we go. Okay, so two files were changed. One was package.json and the other one was the test.js. package.json, you can see that there's a minus on the line number 7 and then a plus on line number 7 as well. That means the previous line looked something like this, that is changed now to node test.js. So that's how you can see the difference in a file. And there's all over the place. So red means removed, green means added. A file that has yellow sign like that is a file that already existed, just got modified. If there's a new file being added, is a green symbol icon with a plus, and that means you added that file. So yeah, that's how version control portion of the commits look. Let's talk a little bit about branches as well, because that's another concept of version control that is very useful. So let me explain what branches mean. On Google Images, I have a image open which explains branches pretty well. And what we can see here is there are 4 branches. There's a master branch, a develop branch, a feature branch, which is yellow, and another feature branch that is blue. So that's usually how branches would work. They're just copy of your code. So master branch will have a copy of the code, develop branch will have a copy of the code. Usually you would use develop branch to branch out of to create a feature. And once you've created that feature, like yellow feature in this case, once you've done with that feature, you can merge back into develop, and then develop can merge back into master to give access to everybody who's using the master branch. That's all it is. It's just a copy of your code, so you can avoid doing things like creating a new file, project, and then you made changes to that. So it's like, okay, well, I mean, project is useful, but I also have project 2 now. And project 2 is useful, but this I promise is the final one, so project final, so on and so forth. Where in Photoshop usually you will have these kind of situations. So branches reduce this kind of situation. All right, I'll see you all in the next video.